Genghis Khan, the universal ruler who forged the largest contiguous land empire in human history, began his life not as a conqueror, but as a fugitive fighting for survival on the unforgiving frozen plains of the steppe. Before he shattered the dynasties of Asia and the Middle East, he was Temujin, a boy cast out by his own tribe, forced to hunt rodents to survive the winter, yet possessing a will of iron that would eventually bend the world to his command. Before we start, if you love stories like this, please subscribe for more. I'll be sharing educational content about wars, kings, warriors, commanders, samurai, and generals. Thank you. Let's begin. The story of his ascent begins in the fractious tribal landscape of the late 12th century, where the Mongol clans were locked in cycles of blood feuds and livestock raids. Temujin's first major military test was not against a foreign empire, but against the Meritocracy tribe, who had abducted his wife, Borte. To rescue her, he did not act alone. He displayed the diplomatic acumen that would define his later career. He forged an alliance with Togrul, the Khan of the Khwarazmian tribe, and his childhood blood brother Jamukha of the Jadaran. In a coordinated assault that foreshadowed his future strategies, they descended upon the Meritocracy camp under the cover of darkness. The raid was a total success, securing Borte's return and establishing Temujin as a rising military leader. However, this victory sowed the seeds of a bitter rivalry. Jamukha, adhering to traditional aristocracy where lineage determined leadership, grew resentful of Temujin, who believed in a meritocracy where loyalty and skill outranked noble blood. The conflict between Temujin and Jamukha tore the steppe apart, culminating in the Battle of Dalan Balzut. While historical records regarding the immediate outcome are mixed, the long-term result was a revolution in steppe warfare. Temujin reorganized his forces, abandoning the tribal units that were prone to infighting. He implemented the decimal system, the arban, dividing his army into units of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000. This structure broke old clan allegiances and forced men to look to their appointed commanders rather than their tribal heads. In 1202, he moved against the Tartars, the tribe responsible for poisoning his father years earlier. Breaking with tradition, he ordered his men not to stop for loot until the battle was completely won, a discipline unheard of among the nomadic armies. He defeated the Tatars and incorporated the survivors into his own ranks, not as slaves, but as soldiers dispersed among his new decimal units. By 1206, having defeated the Naimans and executed his rival Jamukha, Temujin stood unopposed. At a grand Kurultai near the Onon River, the unified tribes raised the white standard of 9 yak-tails and proclaimed him Genghis Khan, the ruler of all men. With the steppe unified, the Khan turned his gaze southward, toward the western Chia, a Tangut-led empire that controlled the vital trade routes of the Hexi corridor. In 1209, the Mongols encountered fortified cities, a challenge for an army built on cavalry maneuvers. At the capital, Yinchuan, Genghis Khan attempted a novel engineering feat, diverting the Yellow River to flood the city. While the engineering was imperfect, the dike broke and flooded the Mongol camp as well. The display of determination and the devastation to the city's irrigation systems forced the Western Shah ruler to submit. This campaign was crucial. It secured the Mongol left flank and provided tribute and siege engineers for the greater challenge ahead, the Golden Kings of the Jin Dynasty. The campaign against the Jurchen-led Jin Dynasty in 1211 was a conflict of scale that most observers believed the Mongols could not win. The Jin commanded hundreds of thousands of infantry and controlled vast fortifications, including early versions of the Great Wall. Genghis Khan approached a strategic pass at Yeholing, known as the Battle of Badgermouth. The Jin commander, believing the Mongols would be easily repelled by the narrow terrain, did not deploy his full numerical advantage effectively. Genghis Khan sent a General Mukhali to lead a suicide charge against the Jin center, creating chaos. As the Jin lines buckled, the main Mongol force utilized their superior mobility to flank and encircle the enemy. The result was a massacre that shattered the Jin field army. Over the next few years, the Mongols ravaged the Jin countryside, eventually besieging the capital, Zhongdu. The city fell in 1215, not through direct assault, but through a suffocating blockade. that led to starvation. The capture of Zhongdu signaled to the world that the horse lords of the north had mastered the art of siege warfare. Having humbled the powers of East Asia, Genghis Khan looked to secure trade relations with the West. He sent a massive caravan and diplomatic envoys to the Khwarazmian Empire, a vast Islamic state encompassing areas that are now Iran, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. The Khwarazmian governor of Otrar, suspecting the merchants of espionage, confiscated their goods and executed the members of the caravan. When Genghis Khan sent 3 ambassadors to demand justice from Shah Muhammad II, the Shah executed one and shaved the beards of the others, a grave insult. The Khan withdrew his armies from China and turned the full weight of the Mongol war machine toward the Islamic world. The invasion of Khwarezm in 1219 was a masterclass in strategic encirclement. Rather than attacking as a single mass, Genghis Khan divided his forces. He sent one army under his son Joki to attack from the north, another under Jebbe to draw attention in the south, while he and his son Tolui led a third army through the Kizilkum Desert, a route considered impassable by the Khwarezmian defense. He appeared suddenly outside the gates of Bukhara, hundreds of miles behind the enemy front lines. The shock was absolute. The garrison was overwhelmed, and the city surrendered. Genghis Khan entered the great mosque of Bukhara and addressed the city's elite, sent to punish them for their sins. The campaign continued to Samarkand, the Khwarezmian capital. The Shah, terrified by the speed of the Mongol advance and distrustful of his own commanders, fled west, leaving his empire to crumble city by city. The Mongols utilized terror as a calculated weapon. Cities that surrendered were spared and taxed, while those that resisted, like Nishapur and Herat, faced total annihilation to ensure no rebellion would rise in the Khan's rear. This strategy, though brutal, was ruthlessly efficient. The Khwarazmian Empire, once a beacon of the Islamic Golden Age, was effectively dismantled in less than 3 years. The Shah died in exile on an island in the Caspian Sea, while his son, Jalal al-Din, fought a valiant but doomed rearguard action at the Battle of the Indus River in 1221 before escaping into India. While the main host managed a conquest of Khwarezm, Genghis Khan dispatched his 2 greatest generals, Subutai and Jebbe, on a reconnaissance mission that would become legendary. With only 20,000 horsemen, they rode around the Caspian Sea, defeating the Kingdom of Georgia and crossing the Caucasus Mountains. In 1223, they encountered a coalition of Rus princes and the Cuman nomads at the Kulka River. The Rus forces were numerically superior, but disorganized, with princes acting independently. Subutai feigned a retreat for 9 days, drawing the Rus army out into the open steppe, stretching their lines until they were exhausted. Then, the Mongols turned. The heavy cavalry charged, and the horse archers darkened the sky with arrows. The coalition was annihilated. This great raid was not a conquest, but an information-gathering expedition that proved the vulnerability of the European princes, intelligence that would be used by Genghis Khan's successors to return and conquer Russia a decade later. The final chapter of the Khan's life brought him back to where he began. The Western Shah, having sensed weakness while the Mongols were away in the west, had refused to send troops for the Khwarezm campaign. In 1226, Genghis Khan launched a punitive expedition to punish this betrayal. Despite being in his 60s and suffering from injuries sustained in a fall from his horse, he led the army with his characteristic vigor. The Mongols systematically destroyed the western Chaya cities, ensuring the state would never threaten them again. It was during this campaign, in August 1227, near the Liupan Mountains, that Genghis Khan breathed his last. His death was shrouded in secrecy, to prevent the morale of the army from breaking before the final victory over Western Chaya was complete. His body was carried back to the Mongol heartland. According to tradition, the funeral escort killed anyone they crossed on the path to keep the location of the burial site a secret. He was laid to rest in an unmarked grave near the sacred Burkhan Khaldun mountain, leaving behind an empire that stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea, connected by the Yam postal system, and governed by the Yasa code of law. The legacy of Genghis Khan is not merely one of conquest, but of sheer, unyielding will. He rose from the brink of starvation to break the spine of the world's greatest empires, rewriting the map of Eurasia with the hooves of his cavalry. He was a force of nature, who proved that from the most desolate lands can rise the most powerful of storms. Thank you for listening. If you love this kind of story, hit subscribe button. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comment below.